Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Glad you're here. I see the audience is building. We have with us tonight Drew Bankey, who is, wow, he's got an interesting bio and he's leading an interesting life. He's embodies a deep commitment to service and spiritual well being. And as a veteran, he dedicated himself to protecting his country and serving others. And thank you for your service, Drew. Transitioning into a new chapter of his life, Drew found his calling as a medicine man, using his expertise to help others heal and find inner peace. Well, there's a very good calling. In addition to his work as a medicine man, Drew is a captivating keynote speaker, sharing his wisdom and insights with audiences around the world. He's an author with writings inspiring and empowering readers to live authentically and in harmony with nature. And we found a few things in common just before we started. So there you go. As a co-founder of the plant medicine church Sacred Journeys Within, Drew empowers individuals to explore healing powers of plant medicines for spiritual growth and self-discovery. She's going to love talking to you.
Yeah.
Drew, welcome.
Thank you.
And unmute your microphone.
I got the wind in the background, so I don't want to overpower anybody with the wind. I'm in my tower studio here. So thanks for having me. It's been a while since we booked this and everything, and yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. Just coming off an amazing conference in Wisconsin and got tons to share on that. So
How was that?
it was great. I got to spend time with Chris Bledsoe and Ryan Bledsoe and the family. Got to know them, and yeah, just and got to see Jimmy again. Jimmy Church was out there. He was the MC. Known him for going on 5 years now, so it was good to hang out with him again. Marty got to have the VIP dinner sat beside Marty that's in the chat right there. So yeah, it was just great. And like anything, there's always the forefront mission of going to the conference and sharing your information and experiences and whatnot. But then there's always that background things that happen. So yeah, me and Chris, that connecting was meant to be, obviously. And yeah, some amazing conversations, so.
He is as dear to me as some of my brothers. I mean, we're very close. I try not to bother him because he's constantly busy, constant demands on his time, people wanting help and information. Is the world coming to an end? Can you heal my this and that? And so he bears it with an equanimity and a peace, with joy on his face, just inspirational. And he listens to all the crap said about him and just ignores it.
No doubt. Yeah, he's an amazing being, and I see a lot of myself in him, and we share we share a lot. We share getting that calling to do something extraordinary, and then trying to figure out how to mold your own brand and doing it in a humble way and all that stuff. So I see a lot of myself in him, and I heard a lot about his story. I didn't hear much. I didn't hear enough about his story until I met him, which is good because I have my own mindset or viewpoints towards him, and they changed a lot, much like you said, after meeting him. Things come out about his story, and I've delved into his story and downloaded his book since the conference and everything, and been listening to it. And there's so much that's speaking to me about, even about my own path, seeing things he experienced and connections. Speaking about connections, he talks about going to Egypt, the alignment in Egypt. So a few weeks before the conference, when Easter was coming up, I was telling my wife, I was like, sometimes my birthday falls on Easter, and this was like on April 18th or so, like 2 days She's like, no, it doesn't. Like, because my birthday's April 11th. So I was like, yeah, it does. So I Googled it and I said, look, here's the years it's been, my birthday's fallen on Easter. And when I did Google that in the Google search, it said next year is my birthday on Easter. So 4/11/2026 is my birthday next year on Easter. And so this hit me really hard, as my ears started ringing. So I messaged Chris. And I was like, Chris, what does 46 mean to you? And he's like, nothing that I know of, And then after diving into a story after the conference, I was listening to an interview on his son's show, and he was talking to Chris and going through the story of the Cape Fear incident, the initial incident where he had the incident with the 3 glowing orbs and missing time and all that stuff. He starts out the story. He's like, when I was 46 years old and I was going and on the Cape Fear River and all this stuff, and I messaged him. I was like, Chris, you told me that there was 46 had no meaning to you. I was like, you were 46 years old when this happened. Anyway, and the onion unfolds from there even more. So
he was in so much pain in that year. I bet he barely remembers how old he was, because he believed he had come to the end of his life.
Yeah.
When he cried out to the heavens for help and got 3 orbs.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, there's a lot more to the story, but I can't share all of it, but it's all interesting. So
hey, share anything you want
Yeah.
to. It's just I'm going to tell you what you as you go through the book. Think I am the next to last incident in the book, where he talks about us coming, seeing stuff, and leaving there and being healed, and all sorts of other, and the hitchhiker following home and all that. So just it's not long, but it's in there, and it utterly changed my life. Completely changed.
It's amazing stuff. But yeah, I had some pretty good presentations. I did my main presentation was on psychedelics and their role in human evolution, and I did it all the way. I found evidence that dated all the way back to Neanderthals, so I went over 100,000 years back. Proof that they have been finding scientific proof that humans and humanoids have been using psychedelics for over 100,000 years. So that was my initial presentation. Then I did like a telekinesis workshop where I was blowing people's minds and stuff. So I had a lot of, and that was my first. I did everything. My main presentations were on the first 2 days. So the other 2 days were a lot of answering questions every time I turned around a corner. So I was definitely worn out by the time I got back.
I have a question about the psychedelics. Do you think it was put here as kind of a key to open a doorway for us? Or what do you feel? Okay.
Yeah, I think they come we go through cycles, and the cycle's been going on forever, and it will go on forever. And I think the psychedelics show themselves and become more prevalent in times of need, and they hide in the background when they're not needed. But ultimately, their consciousness and vibration, it goes way past the plants itself. And a lot of these origin stories for some of these psychedelics go back and say that it goes back to a medicine man that died, and he prayed in his final years to have his consciousness live on, and being able to, like San Pedro, the Wachuma cactus, the San Pedro cactus, is some of the origin stories talk about it was a medicine man, a healer that had put himself into that plant, and so his consciousness could be accessed. So his experience and consciousness growth and all that could be accessed. So I think it definitely comes in times of need, and I think it's by no accident that's coming in these times. one of the other things, and when I talk about the things that I share about the conversations with Chris is things that he has shared publicly anyway. So full disclosure, like it's been shared publicly already. But he talked about at the conference that there is a group of women that is heading up a movement they're in the government and the Pentagon, very powerful women. And I didn't get the exact number or know anybody that's in or anything like that, but they have been expecting this moment for almost 100 years, and this we're at the precipice of this about to happen. So there's a group of women that has been working with Chris and others to help facilitate and this transition of basically humanity going into a new age.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we've seen a ramp up in activity here. We get it regularly, but we've seen a ramp up. We began seeing really bright orbs in our backyard over our neighbors' houses. We always see stuff on our deck over our neighbors' houses to the north, and these two giant orbs flew over, and they were self-illuminating. So it was pretty neat.
Yeah, it's amazing times. I'm just honored to be alive and experiencing it with everybody else. So I think we all, in a way, when we were kids, if you talk to a lot of people in the community, UFO community and such, like you talk about them as kids, like they were into Star Wars, they were into all these different things, these mind expansion things from the beginning. So I think everything's a manifestation, and what's happening now is a mass manifestation, because if you talk to everybody, we're reading biblical stories and wondering what it would be like to be living in the day of Samson, or Star Wars, and letting your mind wander and imagination wander. I think we're seeing a result of a collective decision subconsciously to manifest at this time, a new age.
We agree. So we see a lot of awakening. I am privy to conversations that are happening internally in multiple remote viewing groups and multiple CE5 groups, and all of them are seeing this major uptick. The remote viewers are seeing the events from next year. And so like you got Courtney Brown talking about good ETs and bad ETs, fighting it out over us over the next year and try to liberate us from the parapsychological prison we're in, where we can't remember our past lives and we've lost our ability to communicate non-verbally. And that's supposedly the part of what's at war, but it's pretty cuckoo. But the thing is, these groups that I know don't know of each other saying the exact same things. That was startling.
Yeah.
So I started with Chris and I kept looking, and they're all saying the same thing before he got known.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I really didn't, I've heard about him through the years, I stepped in the community in 2019 and started meeting and hearing people, but really didn't get into his story and up until recently. And there's a lot there. And, I have this theory that there's like cosmic molds, or, what some would call archetypes. And, I definitely see my reflection in Chris a lot. So, it was just amazing timing. And it's by no accident that, me meeting him and the timing and everything is all in line. So I'm really excited. It's a lot of hope for me. Like I told him, I felt like I've been alone for years, since 2019, getting this message of being this messenger and everything, and meeting him. It's it's like meeting family. Even with my wife, she's experienced and been beside me and witnessed some of these things, as miraculous things that's happened to me. But it's hard she can't relate to me fully from the viewpoint I am, and what I was tasked to do. and the weight and the stress that is, and everything that comes with it on the human side. So, but it was a lot of release seeing Chris and hope for um, that I can come through on what I agreed to do, I guess, too. So,
You found out in 2019 what you had to do. Was this a download, or can you explain that more?
yeah, so it happened. I was driving, I was in Florida and I was driving one of the guys I had been working with in ceremony, and he was in the back seat behind me, and I was talking to him in traffic and looking up in the rearview mirror and talking to him, and he was having a hard time processing some things from a past ceremony. And as I'm talking to him, all of a sudden I see my face, like his face morphs into my face. So I see my reflect, and basically I see myself sitting in the back seat, and I I look away from it for a minute. I look back, and it's gone. It's back to him. But best way I could describe it, it felt like it was like an earthquake, but the everything was shaking, like the air, the ground, everything. And I was like, oh, I got to pull over. So pulled over, pulled into a parking lot, and as soon as I put the car in park, I I just like passed out. Best way I could describe it. And I was in darkness, complete darkness, and I saw a shimmer of light way off in the distance. So I started to go towards it. I was like, just in my conscious state, had no body, and I was just in the darkness of the ether. So I go towards the shimmering light, and as I get closer, it's a ball of light, probably about 4 or 5 feet in diameter, and it's pulsating. And as it's communicating with me telepathically, it's getting a little brighter and dimmer as it communicates with me. And um, it says, "Step inside me when you're ready." And I said, well, I have to, like, I knew exactly what it was, like source. I could just feel it. Like everything about me knew it was the center of the universe, like where all life come from. And it was the source of all creation. And, actually it gave me a download a download that's in my first on the back of my first book. It's, because it was the first time that source spoke to me. I come up towards it, said, I am the source of all creation. You are the creator. Through the power of manifestation, step into your power to facilitate the upcoming evolutionary shift. So that was the first like download that source gave me in that moment. And it said, step inside me when you're ready. And I've sitting there like had a life review of myself. I said, well, it said, do you trust me? I said, of course I trust you. You're the source of everything. Why would I not? And it said, do you trust yourself? And I was like, well, that's a harder question. So I started doing a life review, going back of it, do everything that I've done. I was having flashes of people that I helped in ceremony, people that I just help in general by my presence, my family, just me sun dancing was a big part of it, things like that. And I come back, I was like, okay, like I feel like I have done enough. Like if I go, because it said if I go to step inside you and I'm not pure of heart, then I have to restart a cycle, a 26,000 year cycle. And that I was at the point of ending this cycle and starting to going to a different one. That said, if you're not pure of heart, if you're holding anything back, and I was like, well, I'm a human, I make mistakes, but my heart's in the right place, and I step inside you. Felt like I was at that point. I felt like I was giving up my physical form to go into source to fix everything. That was kind of what was my reason to do it. So
Wow.
I stepped into this ball of energy, and there was like nobody else in there. Man, like, I can still visualize it. It's almost like this big white chair, and it's empty. You can tell a lot of people sat in it, but it stays empty. People sit in it for a minute, and then they move on. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna set in it, and I'm gonna fix everything. I set in, and I could feel everything. I could feel creation. I could feel not only this planet, but like the whole universe, everything that was ever created. I could feel it. And it was like this big hum that was all balanced, like all the negative and positive all balanced out to this hum that was just perfect all the time. So I was like, okay, the creation itself is self-regulating. Like there's nothing for me to do. And epiphany hit, and I was like, okay, that's why I created, because I was in source at that moment. So I was from the viewpoint of source, and I was like, okay, I remember that's why I created. That's why I created creation, to have experiences and stuff. And I got the huge download that people talk about a lot, but I got it from source in that moment. Like, I think that's where people write it down, and because people's wrote it down before, it's no secret, but I did get it from source in that moment. We have experiences. I was shown the whole thing to raise the consciousness of source through the individual experience. All these individual experiences adds up and goes to the source like a mainframe computer.
Did you experience? Yeah. Did you experience the overwhelming unconditional love?
Yeah. I mean, there was complete clarity. I mean, there was one of the other things that come to me in that moment was love was the currency of creation. That's what we give and take. And that's what gets us through life. Like, without it, like we don't have the energy to go on without it. But, yeah, I just realized that's why the seat was empty when I got there, and the seat would be empty again. And I asked, like, what am I supposed to do? And said, why are you asking? You were in the throne room, basically. Why are you asking, like, what to do? You can choose whatever. I said, well, maybe I want to be an eagle. And then I went and had this vision of me being in this dimension where I am an eagle. And that's why the eagle's connected to me in this dimension. I want to be a butterfly. And I realized that's why I have a connection to a butterfly in this one. So everything I have a connection with, I'm already operating in some other dimensional and frequency and space.
Wow.
as that experience already. So the next question I asked, okay, so I kind of surrendered. I said, what needs to be done? I said, someone needs to walk with this understanding on two legs and be able to articulate it, spread it, and live it, so people could and be that mirror for humanity, and find the balance in between being source on two legs and still being Drew, and walk that path. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I woke up and I was crying, and I looked over at my wife. She was sitting beside me in the seat, and the guy was sitting behind me, and they're like, what the F is just happened? You were speaking and saying all this stuff, like they heard the whole conversation. And I got out, and I didn't say anything to him. I was like, I need some time. And I walked out and found some grass and sat on the grass and sat on the earth for like an hour, and just processed of all this stuff of, like, when I first come back into body, I was like, okay, like I have a Messiah walk to do. And then I realized that, yes, it was a Messiah walk, but not like last time, not like the last Messiah walk happened. This time there would be many Messiahs, and eventually all would be Messiahs until we flashed into a new age of walking in this peace of the next 1,000 to 2,000 years. So when I say that me and Chris have a very similar walk, and then I come out of that, and my first break was Grant Cameron. He did 2 interviews back to back. He did agreed to one interview, and then we ended up doing another interview and delved into a little bit. But since 2009, I've had this burning in my chest to share this message as much as possible. So thank you for providing a platform and letting me get a little of this off my chest after this 3 days of Hogwarts College in Wisconsin that I just went to. But I think it's finally time. And I one of the messages I got in that moment, and this is the moment. This is the first incident that I'm gonna regress. When I haven't regressed it yet. I've regressed a few other incidents with QHHT practitioners and stuff, but this is the one. This is the next one that I'm going to regress.
You met a powerful one. You met a powerful one out there with Deb Shakti. She's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
She's a good
just
friend of mine. You know,
our
she's a good friend of
story.
mine.
Yeah, our stories. We kind of looks like our lives were lived, so we would come together. So we came together, and we're a few years apart and set in our ways. And she's got a teenager, and I'm retired, and we were button heads, and we were seeing stuff. And Grant started this org group because of us, and we're a part of all of Grant's org group work. And we're out on the back porch, on the deck, looking at the sky to see what we can see. And she says, "Give me the camera." And she took the camera, pointed it in the yard at the 6-foot gray that had walked up on us in our yard, and began instructing her in telepathically how we need to get our act together and get on with it. And that was ego death meeting and beginning of a new way.
Yeah.
But like all things, it's you got to work in it, because you go 2 steps forward and 1 back, 2 steps forward and 1 back. It's a process, but we're definitely doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a ride, man. I never signed up for any of this. I did 2 tours Iraq in 2005, 2007. I got out in 2009. Depression and everything was from 2009 to 2014. Suicide attempt in 2014. From 2014 to 2016 for 2 years, I went through the VA healthcare system, and around that time, just synchronicities happened. And one of my buddies went down to Peru, come back and done a few ayahuasca ceremonies down there. I recognized the change, and that eventually led for me to go to my own ayahuasca ceremony. And because I knew there was a spirituality aspect to ayahuasca and everything, but nothing really prepares you until when you experience it. It's totally different. You can read about a place in a book all day long, but until you're actually there, you don't. It's a totally different thing. And yeah, I tell everyone all the time, I got tricked into this role. Like I didn't,
Right.
I had to trick myself into this role, or however you want to look at it. But I wasn't looking for spirituality. It found me. And then after I found it, my mind has always been inquisitive. So it's naturally expanded, on that from 2016 till now. It's still doing it, and I hope it never stops. So
I have a question. Do you think that a lot of people that are going through what you're going through are kind of pushed into spirituality by source? Do you think that they went through a big trauma? Because I know I went through a trauma, and then things started to happen for me,
well, it's part of the design. I mean, we all have trauma. We all have childhood trauma. If you think about it, like we've either been born through C-section or naturally born, and either way in itself is a trauma.
Yeah.
Coming out, and symbolically you're coming out of source. Like when you're born, you're coming out of source. You're coming out of your life source, being you're being detached from it. A lot of us in the Western world we have a karmic hit on just from being disconnected the way we are from source, where we're unknowingly and not choosing to be disconnected from source. There's a thing called lotus birth that was a practice just a few generations ago, and it was widely accepted as the way that children are born. The placenta was born beside the baby. The baby would, over a 2 or 3 day span, dry out the umbilical cord, the connection, and choose when to disconnect from the source. But as above, so below. We're disconnected from source when our umbilical cord is cut, and it's not our choice. It's a violation of our free will.
Mm-hmm.
So we start off with a trauma. each and every one of us. Anyone that says they don't, they, you know what, and it goes on. Like, you know, I was adopted at birth. So the first 5 days I was Joshua Brandon Robinson. On day 5, I turned into Andrew Roy Bankey. So I've been,
Um,
my transition into something different has been a pattern that started from my first breath, and it still continues to this day. But we all have traumas, and um you know, we all have different missions too. Some of us are here to be musicians, some of us are here to be artists, some of us are here to do this Messiah type walk, some of us are here, you know, all these different things. But it's to, just like free will, um we have the right and free will to decide how far we want to take it. You know, we want to change our families' lives, or we want to try to save the world. You know, we can do any of those in between, and more. You know, save the universe, save the galaxy. Like, uh, but it's all our free will of what we want to do with our energy and time here. But I think we live on forever. So my focus now is, one, to stop generational trauma in my family. Um, Two is to stop my forgetfulness of, so my next walk that's outside of this Drew suit, that I remember the next one, and continue out from there, is ultimately to help the world come to this understanding and come to this peace that I found, um, through my walk, by sharing my story. Not so, I don't see myself as so much as a teacher. I'm just a person that has found some profound truths, and I'm here to share my story in hopes that it will trigger others to have their experience that gets them to the same peace that I found. Because you're not going to get it by reading a book. You know, you can read all the books in the world, but you know, reading those books, like I'm reading Chris's book right now, you can relate and see yourself in some of the things, and it can help process and move you along in your own process. I hope to be that for others. I am that for others already. So um, now I'm just trying to gain numbers. You know, I'm just trying to help more, as much as I can, so we can hit that tipping point in the collective, where it's this understanding floods the collective, and it's not just an individual thing.
Right.
Yep.
Go ahead, your turn.
Yeah.
We're taking turns.
No,
I have a lot of questions.
we're good. We're full of questions. Okay, so yeah, so my trauma were some I don't remember because I had 3 cardiac arrests, in other words, NDEs. Well, before I was 1 year old, in the hospital with cerebral meningitis, and them telling my mother that I wasn't going to make it. And my regression said that I was damaged, and they just, quote, source decided to make a change, pulled one out, put another one in, repaired the body, and I was well 10 days later. And then we moved to Alabama. My parents and I did, and I began to have strange things happen. Like, I would be asleep or have missing time, and during it, I would get taught stuff that there's no way for me to know. Reading when I was 3, never having been taught to read. Super science whiz at age 10, when I wasn't even close to that level of science education. Just that went on for a while. And then I had a long 90-minute missing time in my first year in college. And at the end of the missing time period, while I was processing it, I changed schools and majors right in the middle of the school year. And it led me to do what I am doing today. So you cannot tell me these things do not influence you, because the only way you don't know it is to refuse to look at it. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. It's funny. We talk about hindsight 2020 all the time, but you know, if you see the pattern of what has happened, and you see it like aligning, and why it happened, you know, in the past, whether it be a day, a month, or a year, sometimes years past, to figure out. Like Travis Walton, it took years for him to come to terms and figure out that experience was actually a positive experience with higher vibrational beings, things like that. And you hear Chris's story at the beginning. You know, he was running, talk about driving in a truck for his life and stuff with the group. But now, like, just look at it, how much it's changed him and how much light it's brought to his life. If we can know that hindsight's 2020, like, why can't we understand, like, going forward? You know, we can start to, like, realize and start to see the signs. That's what I work on. You know, all these things with ceremony and psychedelics and talks. Even, it's all about you becoming a better person and figuring out, you know, the thing more. So instead of just being
part of the psychedelic stuff is that neuroscientists, et cetera, now know that it amplifies and opens up your neuroplasticity so that you can reconfigure yourself through the experience, and it lasts. So that is a major discovery, because people thought, oh, you stop growing, you're who you are at 20, you're never going to change. Well, that's not true if you could amp up your neuroplasticity with the help of a few plants.
Yeah, you know, my awakening come at 36. So yeah, I was 36 years old when it hit, and it just blew me wide open, man. You know, all the UFO stuff, all that stuff happened afterwards. I had experienced this. So I had a few experiences I can remember, but the most prominent one is when I was sleepwalking one night, and my father caught me sleepwalking and coming back up the stairs. I was halfway up the stairs. He had a downstairs bedroom, was coming out the door of his bedroom. He's like, "Hey, you all right?" I don't know, I was probably 10, 11 years old or something like that. But yeah, I haven't told this story to many people. Maybe 2 or 3 times I've told this story in the past 6 years of doing podcasts. But there was a woman that appeared beside me, and because I started speaking a different language, and that messed him up. There was a woman that stood beside me and told him I was here for a very important mission, and part of his job, because this is my adopted father, but part of his job was to protect me and make sure that I lived on and was able to do my mission and stuff. So I didn't find that until I told my dad about releasing the first book back in 2020, and he told me about that story. He's like, "I've known since you were a kid that this was happening," and I just couldn't really I couldn't tell you about it. I was kind of barred from saying anything about it.
I didn't remember any of the stuff in my childhood until after I had my awakening with Grant and Chris Bledsoe. And then I went, does that stuff happen? So I asked my girlfriend, my parents, my siblings about what happened during this time, not leading them, but tell me what happened. And they confirmed every one of these stories. So it's been a wild awakening from suppressed memories.
It's amazing time we're in. It's just I think it's, you know, it's all positive, obviously. You know, one of the things that Chris was talking about, and this something I've said many times, is, you know, figure out how to eat without having to go to the grocery store, you know, and you know, you don't have to be a prepper, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared a little bit. And you know, the timeline says, a lot of people say, you know, I've seen him put out for, you know, probably the past year. I see like 6 weeks of preparation that you would need. He said 4 weeks. So yeah, somewhere around a month worth of sustainability is not a bad thing to have on hand right now. And you know, just trust that there will be light after this transition point. We shared a lot of when we were talking and getting to know each other. We and actually conversations we've been having today, just a few minutes before we started, was we share a lot of the same dreams and visions of things that will happen. And yeah, it's like the shaman's initiation dream. A lot of people have had it, so it's not a rare thing to have.
Can you explain the shaman dream that lots of people have?
Yeah, it's a dream of flooding and volcanoes and
Be like
tornadoes. A
your
lot of
dreams.
people like multiple tornadoes in the same vision, like looking across the field and seeing several tornadoes at the same time, and things, and this happening all at once. So multiple things happening, be it flooding and tornadoes, hurricanes, lot of earth movement, a lot of earth energy release and stuff like that, which she's a sentient being just like we are. She has meridian lines, she has chakra lines, like, she's a macrocosm of us. So if she's going to go through a shift, it's gonna, and just think about when the first, if you're listening to this, is the first time that you've had an experience with psychedelics, or first time you've had a bona fide like sighting. What happens, your body, you shake, you vibrate, your ears ring, things like that. So just think what it would look like if the earth was going through that same thing. So
Hmm. Yeah. I had a dream like that, so much so it was a few years ago, but I now have enough food to last.
We are prepped. Mama over here has got us
I
prepped.
got enough shit.
2 months, 3 months.
But it was just, it's usually I don't, but it was just this nagging feeling like you really need to do this now,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you look, we're
Yeah,
about to, I'm just going to tell people have their head buried in the sand, but Walmart shelves are emptying because the ships from China are not landing. And what can I say? People are going to have to wake up.
Me and my wife were just having this conversation yesterday. So when I was gone, when I was in Wisconsin, so one of the things that this source told me, like, there would be signs when these things would be happening. And one of the signs, like, things would just start falling into place, and you would naturally, the universe is not going to let you not get through this. Even if you don't make all the steps, it's still going to put things in your path, and there'll be signs when it's time. So we have a well, like, we're on solar, and this is, it's not being a prepper. It's just the way of life that calls to me the most. I'm up underneath me. I'm on a second story, but underneath me is 4 laying hens and 1 rooster. They lay 3 to 4 eggs a day. I got 2 goats down here that are pregnant, about to have babies. That they're full of milk already. So I know we're within a few days of them having milk. But when I got back from Wisconsin, my wife's like, "Hey, I went to the Amish store and got this like 50-pound bag of flour. Like, isn't it awesome?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it means like something's about to happen." Like, so it's just, I'm excited and scared and nervous all at the same time. But ultimately, there's a peace that resides inside me that tells me, not to worry. And
I think it's our job.
I'm not going to leave this plane until my story is complete.
I think it's our job that when all around us is falling apart, it's our job to be focused and get stuff done, so that you and everyone around you will benefit from your dealing with the matter calmly.
Yeah.
And just realize
it's
coming.
Marty brings up a good point. Stay out of fear.
He's absolutely right.
It's the best thing you can. Fear, darkness, or whatever. I think, we're at and I talk about this a lot, and it's the basis behind the title of my first book, I'm Perfect and So Are You. Just recognizing the divinity of creation that we see in ceremonies and we come out of meditation with, and when we come back into this physical state, we immediately start to we have that duality put back on everything, good and bad, light and dark, all this other stuff. I think we're at the end. I think a lot of my downloads, it told me that the 3D, this physical plane that we're in, is a lesson of duality. And once we in that lesson, we move into 4th density, 5th density, all this other stuff. But after 3D, like moving forward, we're we're letting go of duality and understanding it is all source. Like right, bad, or indifferent, from the surface what it looks like, but it's all creation in the end. It's all coming from creation. So therefore it's all sacred.
That's true. I have a question about, you said you have an eagle means something to you. I was wondering if you knew what a coyote means, because I had a dream about a coyote on my back porch, and then when I woke up from the dream, the coyote was on my back porch. And that was literally the first and only time I've ever seen a coyote. So I still wonder what that means.
Well, it could be many things. It's ultimately like what the first thing that comes to you when you see that. That's ultimately what it is. But as far as Native American practices and meanings that is interpreted through animal spirits, it's very literal. So coyotes are pack animals. So there's, if you see one coyote, maybe you feel like you're out of the pack, or you need to find your tribe or whatever. There's some interpretations that coyote's a trickster. So when the coyote shows up, that's a sign you're being deceived, or from someone that you don't know, or something like that. So there's many different ways to interpret it, but ultimately it's about the very first thing, the breath after you saw it, whatever thought that was coming out during that breath, that's what it is.
Okay.
Anything after that, your ego starts to take over and starts to construct some type of whatever. Ultimately, that when you see it, you're sensing it with your senses. You're taking in those codes, and whatever the very first thought is, that's what it is. The second thought is your ego's talk. Is your ego starting to construct from the very first thought.
It sounds like you've been through remote viewing training, because that's it. That's remote viewing training.
No, that's how I live my life. So I was agreed to be the voice of Source years ago. I channeled Source for a while, and now I just speak as one. I'm Drew and Source, and I'm the balance in between, and I'm that. So.
Oh, go ahead. Your turn.
No, you go ahead.
I wanted to know about my dad. He was into holistic healing and plant medicine very much, and he helped me quite a bit with certain things. What do you find is the most beneficial for people in general that they should maybe learn about more, or take more?
Egypt.
What?
I think Egypt. Repeat the question. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm answering a different question.
Okay. What is a good, so with plant medicine, what in general for everybody, is there a certain plant that would be beneficial for their health, spiritually, mentally, physically, that you would suggest them look into?
There's no one answer. It's specific to everyone. Some people smoke marijuana and they have anxiety attack, and some other people smoke marijuana and they can they have the best paintings that you've ever seen. It opens that portal for them. So it's just specific for everyone. There's non-psychoactive plants that are totally beneficial too. Osha root, bear root, or Osha root as it's called. Osha root, and it's also called bear root. Can be, you can chew on that and it can help for congestion, or make it, or you can use it in a tea and use for congestion, or it can be burnt in sweat lodges, things like that. So there's the elders say that there's a plant out there for every ailment. There's an answer out there in the plant world for every ailment, and I believe it. I talk about a lot that plants are more sentient than we are. They're more connected than we are. We have to, this sun energy that's coming from our creator, our physical manifestation of the creator in our world, the sun. The ancients knew about it, and we forgot about it. It's been washed out of our understanding, and the sun's just a glowing ball in the sky now to many. But those that can really connect, they understand the importance of it. That's our source. That's a physical manifestation of source in the physical realm. It's the source of all food. Humans, most humans, other than breatharians, those that have reached a consciousness state, they meditate and they don't eat, which there's around 20,000 of people, 20,000 to 200,000. It's there's a lot of different reports, but there are people on this planet that don't eat, they meditate, and they absorb their energy straight from the sun, and they've been doing this for years. So it's a very advanced consciousness state.
Wow.
But if you think about it, plants have done the same thing. Like a plant will grow in one spot, collect energy from the sun, gets all its codes, and it's okay with staying in one spot.
Mm-hmm.
How many humans do you know can stay in one spot for more than a second? And they have to eat 2 to 3 times a day, or everything's thrown off. Like, think about a plant setting out there in the sun. It's in a deep meditation. It's in a deep sun meditation. Totally reliant, staying in one place. I think it's more sentient than we are. I think they're more advanced. Just because we can walk around and we're at the top of the food chain, they think we're more advanced. It goes way deeper than that. So there's an answer in a plant for every ailment that we have. I truly believe that.
Are some of your books about plants?
I mean, there's just like my stories, like it's all interwoven. My first book is the first eight chapters is a different experience each chapter that kind of led me to my understanding of that now, and the rest of the chapters are kind of what happens after that. My second book, Find Your Inner Guru, it talks about what to do after the awakening. Like, what do you do after your aha moment, after NDE, after a breakthrough with psychedelics, after and whatever, just following a dream and it coming true in real life, things like that. Like, what do you do after that? How do you integrate that feeling, and how do you move on the days after, the weeks and days and years following that experience, and how do you integrate it into your walk?
I think that's important because it is a feeling like, okay, well, what the hell do I do now? And then life gets in the way, and it feels like there's more blockages that come to get you off the path sometimes,
Absolutely. I spoke a lot about it this last weekend about imposter syndrome, that we have it. It's ingrained in us, in the powers to be have it ingrained it in our lives and society as powers to counteract like what we're supposed to do. Like, a lot of us have been given these messages. Like, me and Chris are not just two people that out of many, that's out of billions that's had these callings. There's many that's had these callings. The problem is society has said, okay, no, you're not supposed to do this. Like, if it's blasphemy, blah blah blah. Like, there's a lot of religions even that are based around keeping this a secret. This power, this innate power that we have, every single one of us. There's no, even the worst of the worst still have this light inside them. It's hidden by a lot of darkness, but that's all. That darkness is there for lessons for us, blah blah blah. Like, it all connects, it all equals out. Trust me, it all equals out in the end. But it's our experiences and imposter syndromes, SOB.
It's when I was a university professor and I had lots of graduate students. My first semester with every one of them was getting them over imposter syndrome, comparing themselves to people who'd been working in the area for 4 years during their first month. And I was like, look, you just take one small step at a time, build one piece on top of the other, and you too will be just like them.
Yeah. Getting past the initial awakening moment takes a couple years. It really does, for just to process that moment and come to terms with the initial waking moment. Think back at like anyone that's listening to it, like that moment when your noodle popped. You know, all you could do is talk to family. First thing you wanted to do is spread it to your family. They didn't want to listen. You lost family because you sound like a lunatic. You know, eventually that family ends up coming back. Trust me, it does happen. But that's this pattern. Like everything has a pattern. Like this, especially even with the spiritual practice, everything has a pattern. If you look at if you step back and look at it and look past the individual moments and things that happen, if you look at the vibe behind it all, there's a pattern to it all. You know,
Yeah, my kids thought I was crazy for a year, but they've gotten over it. They know now. Well, my son in New Jersey has seen one of these weird drones. So there you go.
Yeah, it all. I mean, and that's that's my prayer. It happens. You know, it's happened for my family. They've had their own experience and come to terms, but you can. This being inside me, I have to get it out. So, I've irritated my family over the years, but eventually they hit each and every one of them had their own experience and come to terms with it. This house that I'm living at right now, my stepdaughter, about 3 or 4 years ago, she said that she saw the moon outside. She got up and went outside on her balcony, and the moon was so close to her and so bright. And she looked over and she saw the moon. She saw the actual moon in the sky. But what she said she thought was the moon was so close to her balcony, she stepped out onto her balcony and she looked to her right, and the moon was in the sky, and what was in front of her looked like the moon was right in front of her balcony. So and then it took off. So she had her own experience,
What
I think
what major events and activities do you have coming up?
Nothing right now, nothing that I know of, man. I've been invited to a few conferences, but the Star Knowledge Conference that Chief Golden Light Eagle had put on for a few years, went to that about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I've been invited back to that in October. But just I don't know, just the flip of humanity. That's about the biggest event that I've been invited to, and I haven't got the date yet, but it's coming.
Oh, it's definitely coming.
It's a red carpet. It's a red carpet event.
We've seen these weird craft come and all this other stuff come, and goodness gracious, people better wake up. They're going to get a shot.
Yeah, it's time, man. It's time.
Well, we really want to thank you for being on. It's been terrific.
We should have one again because it wasn't long enough.
It wasn't long enough for you to cover everything. And I'm going to see if I can get Chris on. And after I get Chris on, we'll bring you back and have a further conversation, because we haven't covered enough of the things you're doing. We just scratched the surface.
Yeah, it's always like that. But social is Drew Bankey. It's easy to find. YouTube, all that. It's just my name. I was asked at this conference what title would I give myself, and it's just Drew. That's all I am. That's all I ever be, and that's all I want to be. So
I would be just Bob if Dave Scott, who talked me into doing Spaced Out Radio, hadn't started calling me Science Bob, and it has stuck. I'll never get rid of it. Drew, thank you. Everybody in the audience, thank you for being here. We'll be back at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Buy Drew's books.
Yeah, buy his books, and we'll be back at 9 p.m. with Lon Strickler. Everyone, have a great evening.
Thank you.